Now it's time for TIPisodes with quick tips you should know. Techniques you can implement into your workflow right here on A Tale, oh yeah, A Tale of Two Hygienists.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into this week's TIPisode. I'm your host, Andrew Johnston. Earlier this week, I don't know if you had a chance to go back and listen to the Wednesday episode that we just did, but Annie and I were talking on the intro about this incredibly interesting holiday we just had on July 1st. It's called Bobby Bonilla Day. And for those of you who didn't get a chance to listen, I'll just recap it really quick here. In the year 2000, the New York Mets, which is a baseball team, in case, again, people don't know that, they owed Bobby Bonilla $5.9 million, right? Because that's not unheard of for contracts of ball players to be in the millions, right? So instead of taking the money then, they reached an agreement in which they would end up paying him a yearly payout of just under, I think it was like 1.1, 1.2 million, somewhere in there, each July 1st. They deferred this payout, so that's going to start in 2011 instead of the year 2000. And it's going to run for 24 years until 2035. So just under 1.2 million every July 1st. So when all is said and done, that total payout will be just under $30 million instead of that original 5.9. So to celebrate what seems like shrewd negotiating on his part, July 1st now is kind of celebrated as this Bobby Bonilla Day, the day that he turned $6 million into essentially $30 million. And you know, I don't know. The way my brain is, I couldn't let it settle because I'm like, I just don't think, did he really just pull a fast one on the Mets? Like, you have all these really smart people, you know, doing this, then you have a ball player and his agent essentially trying to, I don't know, but I guess pull a fast one is the only way I can describe it. Why would they ever agree to be like, hey, we'll give you $24 million more just so we can pay you later? So that my brain just kind of like, okay, there's something that's just not sitting here. There's no way. There probably actually really is a scenario, which is true, but there's just no way that an organization is really this terrible at business as it seems. So as I was looking into it, I said, okay, first let's look at that initial deferment from the year 2000 until 2011. If the Mets took that $5.9 million and put it into a fund with 7% compounded interest, and then I guess not even until 2011, but let's go to the full 35 years, so until 2035, which is the last year of the payout. If they took that initial amount, they would grow it to be $62.9 million. So if you're looking at it this way, then the Mets actually are making money through their investments. They're making $30 million more on the deal by deferring, even after they've already paid him out. Now, Bobby, on the other hand, so if he was given that $5.9 million in the year 2000, he would actually have had some taxes that got taken out, right? He was in New York at the time, so not only was he getting taxed at the highest tax bracket, but there's additional income taxes. And there's also this thing for sports players that they're taxed kind of based on where they play as well. And so depending on what that looked like, there might be some additional taxes he ended up having to pay. And so let's say that out of that 5.9, he ended up with 3.5 million that he was able to drop into that same fund we just talked about that the Mets could have used. He would have ended up with somewhere around 37.3 million. So that's, again, after that 35 years of maturity. Since Bobby moved to Florida, he would probably have less net taxing at the end of that 35 years, as opposed to if he was still living in New York. So there's that working for him. And then also we have to have the assumption that, you know, he doesn't touch that fund for the 35 years. And if he would have done that, he would have ended up with almost $7 million or almost $8 million more than what the current deal is going to yield him. And then we have to talk about inflation, because inflation is a thing. I mean, it's on the news everywhere. You can't get away from inflation these days. But it's a very critical component to this, because there was interest on the payments, and that was kind of built into this package, and that's great because you do need to have that. But when you look, let's say that we took a basket of goods that was purchased with $100 in the year 2000. Then we take that same basket, we fast forwarded now until today in 2024, it would cost approximately $172 to purchase that same basket of goods. So what we're looking at here is the purchasing power of that 1.2 million that he gets every year is decreasing every single year as it goes forward. So in making this deal back in 2000, He probably thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to have 1.2 million every year. It's going to be so amazing. But then we go to today, and then maybe even fast forward for another 10 years until the 2035 date. Really that value or that purchasing power of what his deal is going to be is really about half or a third of what the original deal would have netted him back in the day. So I'm looking at this, I'm like, who really won this deal? Was Bobby Bonilla so shrewd that he really deserves this day, like to honor him or to celebrate him? And I think kind of, they both kind of won, but I'm going to give the nod actually to the Mets. I mean, Bobby did something that he was able to set up a constant income stream for his retired life. I think he'll be almost 60 by the time that this thing ends. And professional athletes are notorious for going bankrupt because they don't plan really well for a life without these huge paychecks. It's just kind of part of it. I think they're getting better and better, but that's just, historically that's been an issue. The Mets, and, actually we didn't talk about a large part of the story, but if you remember Bernie Madoff and the whole pyramid schemes that he ran, well, the Mets were thinking this whole time that they're going to get these huge double-digit returns because of like the Madoff type deals, which didn't end up coming to fruition. But it's not to say that they weren't still able to find something that was giving them a yield of closer to like that average of between 5 and 10. So probably close to that 7-8% average over all of this time. And so they were in fact able to make money after all on this deal if again, they parked their money in the right ways. So why am I telling you all this? Why are we having this kind of a TIPisode? Well, one, I love it. I do love money. I do love, strategy and negotiations and thinking ahead and forward thinking and big picture discussions. So I love all of that. But I also feel like hygienists aren't given much credit for being financially aware enough to invest in our futures. And probably in many ways, it's rightfully so. But like most ball players, our bodies aren't going to hold out for forever, right? We look at other professions that are able to have people that can endure a longer working lifespan. Their bodies aren't going to fall apart nearly as much as ours are. So we need to prepare. And part of that is investing in a professional guide to take us through the proper decision-making for parking our very hard-earned money. There's a great thread right now in RDH Rant where someone asked about, hey, I'm saving up for a house. I have this money. I'm not ready to get a house yet, but I want to have this money that I can get to later on next year when I'm ready or whenever that time comes. And, what is your advice? Where should I put this? And there was 60 some odd comments of really smart hygienists giving solid advice. A lot of that advice though was get a financial planner, or a financial advisor. And let's talk about money market accounts, CDs, all these different things, like where, these high yield savings accounts, where do other people do that? So if you're in that group, you should go search that thread. But the very long-winded point I'm trying to make is that you need to start investing your money and letting it grow and be working for you in the background, kind of no matter where you are at in your career. So I feel very fortunate that, I was counseled early in my career to go ahead and start. And it's shocking. Even just 15 years ago when I started contributing, it's shocking to see how much money is in there. And all I had to do was set up something. It took the money out. I didn't even notice it was gone. And then fast forward 15 years later, and it's like, wow, that was a good move. But even if you're not starting your career today, but you're already 15 or 20 years in, you can still, it's not too late. You can still invest. You can still make some money. You can still prepare for your future. And I think that's where you got to go. But you need help. And I think that the investment of a financial planner, financial advisor is a really good idea. And some of the comments that were in that group, they said, you know what? I think there's this one person that even bounced around to several different people because it's not everyone's going to be the right person for you based on what you want, or maybe they're not listening to you very well or whatever. You might have to do a little bit of shopping around to find the right person. But anyways, that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Hopefully everyone's thinking about their future, thinking about like where they're going to be in life and what they want, and can plan accordingly. If you have any questions, concerns, make sure you email me, andrew@atale2hygienist.com. Thanks very much. Enjoy your weekend.
A tale of two hygienists.